Andrew Boltbros here. Well, I'm doing a video on Ladd McConkey, right? And I want to talk quite a bit about the draft in general, but focus on Ladd, where I think he fits in the offense, and really just give you guys a general idea of what a lot of the so-called experts are saying about the draft. Just so you guys know, pretty much everyone across the board is giving the Chargers around an A to A plus grade on the draft. Worst I saw was a B plus, right? And the reality is this: they addressed all the needs that all the experts wanted. It really makes sense because really, Joe Ortiz and also Jim Harbaugh, I mean, let's look at their first pick. You can sit back all day and say, well, we should have gotten Malik Neighbors. We should have gotten somebody, to attack downfield. But this guy, Joe Alt, is 21 years old. Again, I'm gonna explain why he matters for the Ladd McConkey conversation, and also why the Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh conversation. This guy's 21 years old, just learning and getting into his. He's a boy, right? I mean, he's not even a man. Well, he is a young man, right? But he's going to grow. He's going to get bigger. He's already extremely athletic. He played quarterback, played tight end. The dude will switch to right tackle, no problem, right? Now Justin Herbert has bookends. The running game will be solid. The passing game will be unaffected, or hopefully unaffected. And we now have the two bookends that they need to have a good passing and running game, which is amazing, right? And again, we're going to keep our crown jewel Justin Herbert upright. Now, here's the other reason why that matters. This guy here, Rashawn Slater. So we now have the bookends. So these guys literally could be the right tackle and left tackle for the rest of Justin Herbert's career, right? And that's what they wanted. Okay. So they addressed that first. And it makes sense. I know it breaks our hearts. We all got our hearts set on, Malik and all this and that. And, but it is what it is. But again, the next pick, best available player at wide receiver. Let's see what Steve Smith said about his top 10 wide receivers. Again, he had Malik Neighbors first, which I thought was interesting. He was probably the only one that I really saw that had him above Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas. I saw Brian Thomas right above Ladd McConkey for the most part. A.D. Mitchell, all this. It's kind of surprising how some of these people have broken out. But what I really saw was Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas, and then Ladd. That seemed to be the consensus for all of the wide receivers that I saw from most of the experts, except Steve Smith. But I thought this was interesting just to give a different point of view. I mean, he was amazingly awesome wide receiver in the NFL. Let's see what his take is. And hey, it's everyone's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I totally get it, right? But again, it's very interesting to see how it plays out. And let's talk about Ladd McConkey, the man of the hour, and why we got him. The thing about Ladd to me is he's still very young, right? Again, he was not highly recruited, just so you guys know, not highly recruited at all. He is literally 6 foot. Well, they say 6 foot. He's probably more like 5'11", about 186, maybe like 180 potentially. The dude is he's got juice, right? Remember his nickname? It's Juicy. That's his nickname. I'm coining that right now. It's Juicy. But he is incredible. There's a lot of things to discuss about him. I think when he was originally supposed to be drafted, he was like 5'6", wasn't tall at all. Nobody wanted him. Yeah, he had moves, but he just wasn't tall. And so there were people that were like, well, you really don't want him. Apparently, Smart saw him, the head coach of the Bulldogs, saw him playing basketball. Say, hey, why don't you come try out? He tried out, made the team, and look where he is now, right? And so a lot of people even had him as a first-round pick as well. So the fact that he went so early in the second round is pretty big. I think that's partially why we traded up to get him. As we all know, we did do that, right? So, again, the Bolts sent number 37 and 110 to New England for exchange of 34, which gave us the ability to get Ladd McConkey and 137. A lot of people had him much higher on their boards. I think that's kind of why they panicked and did that, but didn't hurt us overall, and especially with the third pick that we get, Junior Colston. But again, he's a top 10 wide receiver prospect. Daniel Jeremiah had him around 30. Dane Brugler had him around 31. But again, he's really great. Let's just review his stats really quickly, and then I'm going to kind of talk about a little more of why I think he fits in the system and where he's going to fit in the system moving forward. But just see his receiving numbers right here. They're not super stellar. He's only had 120 receiving catches when he was at Georgia. The thing to keep in mind, I think that's part of the reason why he slipped down the list, right? He hasn't had a gigantic body of work. The reality, though, is this. They had Brock Bowers there. Brock Bowers was getting the ball all the time, right? And sometimes when you're the number 2 target, maybe number 3 target to some degree, you don't get the ball as much, right? But here's the thing. What he did show on the field was absolutely electric. I'm going to talk more about that as well too. But again, his career stats, 37 or 119 receptions, 37 games played, a little over 1,600 yards total. He averages at 14.2 yards per reception. Guys, that's big. His yards after the catch are gigantic. He creates tons of separation, right? So it's going to be great. 14 touchdowns, longest is 60, and that was, essentially his rookie career, right, at Georgia. But again, there's a lot to be said about what he can do moving forward. Now, he did rush the ball a little bit, like jet sweeps and things. I do suspect we're going to use him for that as well. I think it's going to be a very big part of the offense moving forward. A lot of jet sweeps, a lot of motion, running back moves and around, much like the Dolphins run, right, where you have one guy rolling and running through it. I think that's going to be a big part of the offense moving forward. But again, he carried the ball quite a bit. He's really only had about 216 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns, right? So he's been productive in a number of different facets of the game. But let's talk about him specifically, right? I think how he fits within the organization. So I'm just going to give you a general breakdown of all of the supposed experts. And again, I keep saying supposed, right? These are the guys that do this for a living. So I think they know what they're talking about. And I think this is another reason why, right? Not a huge body of work, but he's slightly undersized. And he really is, guys. He's probably 5'11", probably more like 180, maybe 175. But he has excellent speed, right? He does. I think it was a 4.39 with quickness and polish. And he juicy. Guys, remember, that's his nickname, Juicy. Ladd Juicy. Ladd is juicy. He lines up on both sides of inside and outside and in the slot. Lines up both outside and in the slot. Well, I said that all wrong, didn't I? So he plays X, he plays slot. Personally, I think he'll probably play slot more for the Chargers, but we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a little bit of both, right? He's quick to the line, understands how to attack leverage of his man. Who does that very well is Brock Bowers, right? And Jim Harbaugh called him Baby Bowers, which I thought was pretty hilarious. I was like, wow, let's probably not call him that like long-term. Juicy. Guys, let's call him Juicy. I've already coined it. Juicy. That's his name. But again, he looks a lot like a smaller version of Brock Bowers. And I think that's what kind of got the Chargers so enamored with him. But he's good. He changed his speed throughout his route and is efficient getting in and out of the break, right? Which I think is huge. It's a big part of being a wide receiver, and creating separation is a very good job of that. Yards after the catch are stellar with him as well. And he's very sure-handed in his catching. He will utilize head nods and sell routes and create great separation, which is absolutely huge. That's what you need to do in the NFL. He has excellent feel and can settle in space versions of zone coverage, right? So again, he knows how to break zones. He knows how to do this. That's why the Baby Bowers, assessment comes in. Strong hands, pulls and plucks the balls away that are thrown away from his frame. There's one wide receiver on our team that needs to do better at that, Quentin Johnston. Quick to transition upfield after the catch. He relies on his quickness to make defenders miss overall. McConkey isn't quite a physical as former Seahawks Doug Baldwin, and I think he will get there, guys. I think if we put 15 to maybe 20 pounds on him, Ben Herbert shoves some meatloaf down his throat. Let's get him a little bit beefier. But he does see a lot of similarities with Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin's a very good wide receiver. I'm going to give you my similarities as well, too. I could see McConkey having a similar career. I actually think it's going to be a little bit better than that, right? The guy that I think he reminds me of is Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen for the Chargers. He's going to be a great third down person to throw the ball to. He will create that separation. You'll get that third and short down pretty easy if you want to throw the ball. Secondarily, he has such good yards after the catch. That's one thing Keenan Allen really didn't do well, right? He caught the ball and then fell to the ground. Ladd will try and get those extra hard yards. Now, it'd be really interesting to see if he does it in the NFL, but I do see him being more of a slot receiver. I'm going to give you a bit of a prediction as well, too. I do think that this guy, Ladd McConkey, could be this year's Puka Nacua. Now, you might say, well, Andrew, Puka Nacua is picked in the 5th round. Yes, you're right. I saw Puka Nacua quite a bit when he was at BYU. This guy reminds me very much of Puka Nacua because very similar frame, very similar size, very similar speed. Reason why Ladd also dropped down was injury concerns, size concerns. Why Puka Nacua dropped down was a ton of injuries. He had a lot of injuries all through college. So If you can get him to stay healthy, this guy is going to be amazing. And he's walking into probably one of the best wide receiver rooms for him personally, because there's not a lot of talent there right now that have worked with Justin Herbert. Josh Palmer's probably the number one guy right now, but this guy right here could step in and be that second guy for the quick hitters and just get a ton of receptions, right? And hopefully get more yards after the catch. His upside is so gigantic, guys. And I'll just say this, guys. I'm going to wrap up my final thoughts here. Bottom line, Ladd McConkey is a great pick. When you look at what we did with Joe Alt, protect Justin Herbert, give him the time, and allow this guy, Ladd McConkey, the time to create space, find some separation, and find an open zone. Justin Herbert's accurate. He's going to get him the ball on time, in rhythm, not a problem. It's a great pick, and it makes perfect sense. We now have the right tackle and left tackle for Justin Herbert's future. It's going to help the run game, the pass game, and this guy's going to help the pass game. I couldn't be more excited. I honestly give this draft class an A+. I truly believe they made every decision perfectly. We're going to go through each one of these players, even the undrafted free agents, and talk to you guys more about our thoughts on them. As always, Andrew Bulpros. See you guys in the next one.